Hi everybody and welcome back to B2B NAV. We're going to dive straight into it this week and we are discussing the B word, budgets. So in the sense of, I want to kick off by saying we obviously have a lot of new clients, existing clients and prospects that come to us potentially with ideas of what they want to achieve, of being that aspirational kind of objective, so results they expect, and then they say, and for that we've got 50k. So I'm picking that number out of the air, and for some people that might be a lot. The number's kind of an irrelevance here, but with a very fixed budget mindset is what I'm getting at, versus also fixed objectives and results that they want to get for it. And quite often they aren't aligned and don't sit very well together. So kicking that as a starting point, I guess, as an agency, do we think we're better off pushing back on that? Are we better off just trying to accommodate what we can for that budget? Or I think the challenge for me is always you get into a pitch process with this and you know other agencies will respond within that budget, but they've no chance of hitting the objectives, as an example. So
the balancing act, isn't it, of can you do something for an amount of money?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely we can.
Yeah.
Will it achieve what you've asked us to?
Mm-hmm.
No, it won't. But I think then you find a lot of agencies, and we've seen it in the pitch process, will say that they can deliver the moon on a stick to win the business, and they'll chase the revenue rather than the long-term relationship.
I think it depends on the type of activity being asked to carry out as well. Is it a fixed project, or is it something that should be more ongoing? So campaign-based or project-based, effectively. Because if it's project-based, then having a fixed budget probably makes more sense, or at least there's more of a place for it. If it's campaign-based, then I would think in general it should be more based around what you're trying to achieve and how do you go about doing that, and what's the best use of your budget to achieve that.
But even on a project basis, do you see it? I know the answer as I'm asking it to you, but I mean, do you see it in the sense of you get a brief through on a new project from a client? Are they talking about KPIs and ROI of what they want to see, or is it just I've got 50k to launch a new product
And I want to do something?
Yeah, I suppose it is more along those lines as opposed to being kind of objective based. It's more, this is the amount of money we have earmarked, and I guess from an agency point of view, we don't always know where that's coming from. We can presume it's either the amount they have left or the amount they have assigned to it, or sometimes it's just what they think it is the value of that, and they've kind of plucked it out of the air.
I think is it not human nature, though, to always want a little bit more than you can afford, whether it's a car, a house, a holiday? And you kind of see that behaviour when you receive a brief or a RFP or whatever it might be. I can't think of a time in 20 plus years of working in advertising where I've sat there, looked at something and gone, wow, they've really given us a lot to do with, a lot of money to do this project with, or we can really achieve something. I have never been on that end of the conversation. It's always been a case of, okay, which bit, what can't we do? And I think we're getting better here at BDB at saying, well, for that budget, we can't do that, or we can't do that, or we'll not put that in the proposal, rather than saying, right, what are we going to discount?
I think a lot of it also ties back to the lead qualification side of things, which we definitely touched on in a previous podcast, but in the sense of why have they got that budget? Why has it been set at that level? Is it because they've done a campaign previously at that level where they thought it was really successful? Or is it quite often more the case that they've got a pot left over? Or if it is just an arbitrary cut of a bigger budget, so they've got 100,000 and it is 20 that they've carved out for that, why? So I think there's nothing wrong with pushing back on the client and re-educating them about what they do need to spend to achieve the results that they expect. But the gap for me quite often is they don't also know what results they expect. So they might say awareness, they want more awareness, brand awareness.
But can you quantify that? Can you put some metrics against it? You know, is that leads generated? Is that visits? Is that impressions? Ollie and I were having a conversation around this a couple of days ago around what's it like? Is it dwell time? Is it emails? You've got to kind of be able to put a figure against it.
But quite often you can't. That's what I mean in reality. So we find out, we do it regularly. We find ourselves in pitches where they want to increase brand awareness. That's it. So we push them down the route of saying, well, how? What's the metric? What's the what are we going to put in place to measure that? Well, they're not really that much consideration at that stage. So then,
I think to some extent that comes down to the sophistication of the marketing team itself.
Okay.
In terms of knowing what they should be getting out of it and what they can get out of it, versus like, oh, we know we want to be seen because that should result in us getting a higher market share. So it's just let's shout about what we do and why we're great at it, as opposed to, I guess, thinking a bit more strategically about what you're trying to get out of it, and then thinking a bit more detail about how you can measure that, and then thinking about, okay, well, what if that's what we're going to measure, then what do we need to do? Then you can start talking about your budgets and how does that fit and what ROI should you be getting out of that. It obviously is a little bit harder to go down that route, but I think what you get out of it at the end of it should be a lot more valuable then.
But where do you stand on the whole fact of, because I buy into everything you just said there, but where do we stand on, okay, so we have a client that comes with us and says, okay, well, I want a bronze, silver, gold approach, or we have a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 type proposal situation. This seems to happen quite a lot, I would say. We're seeing more and more of this, of give us 3 price points and 3 options. Still, they've not mentioned what results they want, or what their expectations are around that.
Is that where we have to be responsible is, from the agency perspective, actually pushing back, which I know we have started to be much more robust in.
But do you think as part by pushing back, you're actually reducing your chance of winning the work almost? Because say there's 4 agents in the mix, 1 pushes back and asks challenging questions of the brief. 3 just accept the brief and do a proposal off the back of it.
So I would say from our experience that if we don't push back, 8 or 9 times out of 10 if we're successful in the RFP or the pitch and we do the project, once the project's complete, we'll analyse the amount of time that we've spent on the project. And there's always a little bit of flex that you build in for onboarding or for kind of getting to know the problem more closely, but we'll end up running it at a loss and not making any money. And for me, there's always an alarm bell that goes off if a client is not prepared to engage you with difficult questions. They're expecting the best of us, they're expecting our experience, our knowledge, our kind of intellect, but they're expecting us to do it without questioning what they want to do. And it comes back to that thing of, maybe they'll say what they want. Every brief says, I want to do this, I want to do that. Very rarely do you get one that's intelligent that says, I need to do this, or I need to achieve this. And that pushback, for me, is one of those qualifying things of, if you're not getting the responses, or you're getting partial responses, or you're asking very simple questions and they can't be bothered to respond, you've got to look at that and take a collective decision of, are they serious?
I think that, again, it's lead qualification again, because from both sides, the quality of the brief, I think we've done that in a previous podcast, the importance of that. So, but sometimes you can still get a pretty robust brief from a client, but then they accept questions in a certain window and you ask them, but I just don't think you always get the answers to, because some of them are too hard for them to turn it around in the window that they've allowed. And therefore you end up pitching with missing information.
But then that shows really poor preparation. In my mind, it shows that they're not invested in the process. We could wax lyrical for hours about truncated pitch processing, and I'm sure at some point we will. But it does feel that if they're not prepared to invest that time, and they suddenly, put a 2-week deadline on a RFP that's been prepared for 6 weeks, and they're not answering questions in totality, how serious are they? And that's got to be forming part of our qualification.
I think that's one of the things that I think separates us from some other agencies as well, from the point of view of we don't want to just respond to the brief. We want to really understand why we're doing something and how best to achieve those objectives. Therefore, we do need the engagement from the client, and we need to understand why that budget's set. We need to understand what their objectives are. We need a lot of information answered in that brief in order to give what we feel is the adequate response to it.
We're not doing ourselves justice. And I think, people come to agencies for the best response they can. They come to an agency because they want something they can't achieve themselves. So, I don't know, I would never go into any situation wanting or, stifling someone, wanting them to fail, or not giving them as much information and help to deliver the best solution to me. And I find it quite weird that sometimes that's what
It feels like that sometimes, definitely. It really does.
I don't want to play the pity card, but it does, you're right, it's kind of, what's that about? What's the rationale? Is that because they're unsure about what they want to achieve? Are they under pressure to try and generate value from the agency? And does value mean getting a lot of things for a smaller price?
Do you think it ties back because here at BDB we are integrated in the sense of we think bigger picture all the time, rather than a client could say, I want a website, I've got £25,000, again just making up numbers and scenarios. Is that because we just don't think like that website in isolation? We'll be thinking about, well, look, does the brand work, does the proposition work, what's the messaging, what's the
straight away just as an easy extra to that. That's like, okay, great website, do you need that content writing too? And often that they've not thought about that, or that's an extra to their cost. And then it's like, well, how are you preparing the SEO for that new site? Do you have people in house do it? Do you have another agency? Do you want our support on that too? And these things, because when we are integrated, we start thinking about everything else.
As you'd hope they do.
Yeah,
but I think at the client side, quite often they do look at things in very much in isolation, don't they?
Everything you've just mentioned is really important.
Yeah.
And that's just one little microcosm of the digital world. It's not even touching on the brand, the proposition, the messaging, the comm strategy, the tone of voice, the aesthetics. It's literally, here are all these other things around the website, and people are like,
Yeah, because the second we have a website, it's like, great, how do we get people to it now? How do you want to engage with people?
how do we convert people when they've arrived?
How do you then sell to those people?
But does it therefore depend on who you're selling to as well? I'm just trying to unpick this because in the sense of, if you've got somebody client side who is their web lead in this case, and their responsibility is delivering that website and that's it, and you've got a digital team who are going to lead on all the amplification or pushing traffic to it, or you've got a content team who are going to bother about the content, and you do get this quite siloed kind of groups. If you're dealing with that web lead at the client side of things, and that's their sole project to get that done, is that part of the problem, do you think, that maybe you're not dealing with people who are thinking about it across
I think
the
we
piece,
talked about it, didn't we, a while ago, about the power of integration and how important it is. And I think it is. I think the moment you have people running unilateral projects within a business, you lose a continuity of experience and touch points. So the guys doing the amplification are doing whatever they're doing, and they're probably doing it really, really well. But has that got any correlation to the destination site? And then when they get to that destination site, has that got any correlation to the after site experience and the nurturing and any ABM or marketing automation that's in play?
I think that I'm struggling a bit at the minute with the whole tiered approach of the gold, silver, bronze strategy, which is why I'm pressing on it, in the sense of that approach is cool, but if you've not got a clear expectation of why gold's better than bronze, other than more, so it's not like more content. So if it's a content plan of some kind, and bronze delivers this level of content, and gold has a bit more in it, or it goes for a longer period, or at a crude sense, whatever it does. But that still doesn't say how much more traffic it's going to generate, how many more leads it's going to generate, how much more awareness it's going to generate.
I mean, from the point of view of that, if you're looking at gold, and gold's going to be running 2 or 3 campaigns instead of one, that should all be driving their own traffic and their own leads, then why aren't you just going straight in gold? What's the value of doing the bronze?
And then gold
exactly where my mind goes. So you go like, okay, so...
But you can't sell, a silver or a bronze level of campaign can't be of any less quality than a gold, can it? So...
What it can be, I suppose, is a smaller scope.
It can be smaller scope, but
so
the actual quality of what the written word, the content, the thinking...
We're not saying we'll design at the bronze level. We'll design you a picture, but it won't be great. And at the gold level, we'll design you a really nice picture,
and we'll colour it in as well for you. But then we've encountered this a lot, and then I think the only way you can do it is almost flip it on its head and say that that base budget, that's got to be the. Can you achieve? And again, it comes back to, have you been given any clear metrics or clear goals? Can we achieve for that? Let's pick 50k out because you mentioned it earlier. Can we achieve what you want for 50k? And it's going to be quite simply a yes/no answer. And then it has to become a sliding scale, doesn't it? Of, okay, if it's a no, at what point on that little journey up to 100k do we hit the tipping point of, we think this amount of money will answer the base level?
And do you think, 'cause I agree with that, but do you think you can be that prescriptive? I know you can now with AI and predictive analytics in terms of how campaigns will perform and so on, but do you think you can be as sophisticated to go 73k is the minimum you need to spend there to get that that result. That's being honest. I mean, do you think can you do that, or is it more of a gut feel? Is it
I think it's art and science. I think it's a blend.
You've done those kind of campaigns before. You know what type of level of spend is required to achieve that.
Practice, what you've seen results wise, and you're just going to have to start it and then flex with it from there.
We've got tons of other variables in there. You've got how much is the market saturated? Is there a lot going on? Is there a lot of active competition? Is there no competition? Yeah. Is it a new market you're in? There are lots of different variables you have to play in there, but to be actually presented with just, I want a 50k, 75, 100k, 150k solution.
Yeah.
You're like, can't do it. Or you can. Sorry, can't do it is wrong. Yeah. But you can do it, but you can't guarantee delivery against that. You've got to kind of be more scientific.
Yeah, I just think you can only have those tiers if you're very clear on what is the benefit of spending that extra 50k other than more. That's what I mean, because at the minute I think a lot of agencies would tend to yes we can deliver at 100k, yes we can deliver at 50, and you'll get more things, more items, more.
But will those more things content translate into more leads?
And I think that's the question that the buyer has got to ask themselves if they've got a brief out there.
There's a phrase I've heard many times. It's like less money, think harder. And if you are presented with a smaller budget, you've got to think a lot harder to make that work.
It forces you to be more creative with it.
It does. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it forces you to actually hold your hands up and say, "I'm sorry, there's no way." I don't know if you give them 50k and said, "I want to attack 3, 4, 5 different global markets in the next 6 months." You just have to hold your hands up and go, "Look, just purely through the cost of paid advertising, that's impractical."
That's one of my.
That's your media budget.
That's one of my biggest bugbears is that we do see that quite a lot of clients sort of saying we've got a new product launch. Let's say we want a campaign. Let's say it's a LinkedIn campaign to support that. We've got landing pages already. We've got all these materials for it. We want people to be able to download it. Great. What's your audience? It's this industry globally. Oh, what's your budget? 10k. It's like, so you've got an audience here of 200,000 people.
Yeah.
And an average cost per click is like £5. Yeah. So how far do you think that 10k is really going to go? If you think about the fact, any of us browsing LinkedIn or whatever else it may be, do we always click the first ad we see? Mm-hmm. Is it the second ad, the third ad? I know there's examples where I personally experienced it, and I finally picked up on a platform that's been advertising to me after something like the 10th or 15th time I've seen the advert, where I've finally gone, what is this? So if we think about that, and if that holds true to some extent for our campaigns and client campaigns, then it's not enough to be able to go we've reached 10% of the audience once. Yep. They need to be thinking about the frequency and exposure.
And then you're into integration, and I guess sometimes we're victims of thinking beyond that one brief. If projects are great, but projects can only get you so far.
Well, I was going to say, do you think the fixed budget mindset is more project problematic than campaign led? Because I guess if a client comes to us and says, my budget for the year is $500,000, again, just picking numbers out there, so they're not the same ones, but a £500,000 budget to spend with you guys this year. Here's the objectives we want to achieve. Shake up account, 12-month campaign that's going to run and make sure we achieve those metrics. That seems easier to work with than I've got this spiky project here that I've got a product launch that.
I think it's more realistic, isn't it? Because we all know that it takes time to nurture. It takes time to get people through the kind of sales timeline. They're not going to be with you 100% of the time. So just having that sort of open-endedness of over a 12-month period we need to get from A to B is a lot more practical than saying, I've got a campaign, I've got enough to do a little burst of activity, it's probably going to last 4 weeks. I still want to get from A to B with the same amount of people and create the same amount of interest. You just can't do it. There needs to be this gestation over time. Mm-hmm. And that's just simple human psychology.
Yeah.
I also suspect that quite often, and it'd be interesting to hear what you guys think, I feel like the budgets are sometimes set quite far in advance and quite arbitrarily. It's we've got 2 product launches this year, so let's just say 50k of our budget's going to each of those. We've got 300k, let's use that over here. And then when it comes down to it at the time, it's like, okay, we've got 50k for product A, how do we use it? And there's no rhyme or reason to how that 50k was made up, so it's a case of let's just see what we need. Okay, we need white papers, we need brochures, we need... And again, it's somewhat arbitrary what's being picked in some cases.
Almost the budgeting process internally then at companies, in the sense of when they are setting those budgets, rather than saying we spent $500,000 last year, therefore we'll spend $500,000 next year, or quite often the case, obviously marketing budgets are under more pressure, so generally been reduced. When they're carving that amongst activity of product launch here, A, B, C, whatever it may be, amongst other activities, Is that the problem? That they're not actually being granular enough in their own planning of going, that's our product launch, we also want to sell X number of those, therefore we'll need to have this many leads.
I think it depends a lot of it depends on the organisation, structure, the size. So you talked earlier about, is there a problem with individual departments taking on different parts of the marketing activity? Equally, a lot of the organisations that we see have got divisions that have got project managers who are essentially their own fiefdoms.
Yes.
So you'll have one product manager having one little piece of the marketing pie.
Yeah.
That's his budget. Then there's that budget over there, and there's no continuity between them all.
We see that in a lot of clients, don't we, with different verticals, and they all own their own budgets and they're all in control of their own budgets, yet the marketing strategy's almost set
elsewhere and doesn't necessarily correlate.
No.
So I think there's a disconnect there, and I think that probably will sort of have a knock-on effect on the way that budgets are kind of formed. So, from the top, they're going to be, I don't know, we've got 20 divisions and we've got 2 million quid, and they're all generating the same amount of revenue, £100,000, 100,000 each, off you go. And there's no science to that in terms of, it might be that one division only requires a little bit of kind of pastoral care. It's ticking along quite nicely. They're saturated. There's no need for growth. There's no competition. Why don't we take that and go to a market that's under pressure and be a little bit more savvy about how it's divided, rather than blanket. Well, I need that for that. And
we saw that with the client we did the session for last year, didn't we? But in the sense of did sort of an isolated project for a client, which was fine, but they had that exact same issue in a way, didn't they, of having so many different global divisions and global marketing managers, I think was the phrase they'd used. But they had complete autonomy over their own budgets, didn't they, if you remember rightly? And then they were trying to set down central themes and central activity and central flows.
But then it got so central. So their answer was to centralise everything and syndicate it out, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and
but I don't think that's happened either.
But even if it does happen, it doesn't work because it's syndicated out from a single source. And if that single source is anywhere in the world, you can guarantee that another country in the world is going to say, that's not going to work in my territory.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you think, well, how do you get these people to think together? How do you get them to think, well, okay, they've split the budget up and country A's done, I don't know, a really good job on some, I don't know, social interaction campaigns. And they hold it. And then you think, well, actually, country B could have worked with that, but because every country's got its own individual marketing stream, and its own agency, and its own this, that, and the other, and we're getting onto the global integration thing, you've lost an economy of scale there that could have given you so much bang for your buck across every territory.
So I guess everything we've touched on so far is about when you've been given a budget. What about the flip side, when you get the briefing or the RFP without a budget? And then we do the lead qualification kind of things. We'll put a call in. We'll say, okay, you want to do this activity. What's your budget? And quite often, I think this depends quite largely dependent whether they are a large multinational global business or maybe an SME type environment. But SMEs are always very reluctant to say, I've got 50k. They'd rather say, well, you tell me what I need. And that's literally, I always come back to it. I've probably said it before. Well, how fast is the car you want to drive? You can have a Fiesta, whatever, or you can have a Ferrari. It depends what you're after, doesn't it? So, but when you aren't given that budget, do you think, does that set alarm bells ringing for you guys, or do you think, okay, they just want to know what they need to spend?
I guess my previous stance was that I'd rather have a budget, so you know that you're not going to go crazy on it. But now I think I'd rather just know the solution that they're looking for, the outcome that they're looking for, and build what you think is required towards that. And obviously, then you can start collaborating. I think we all know that the first thing we propose is rarely the final thing that gets delivered, from the point of view of you propose something, you're working a bit more in isolation than before you've been selected to work with a client. So when you do start working together, there's always going to be places where you need to revise it, you need to refine it once you've immersed yourself and you know more. So what we propose is always going to change. So I think working with a bit more of an unknown budget gives us that freedom to propose what we think is needed instead of trying to adhere to a budget. And then if they do have a limited budget, then we can look at scaling things back. So let's say, for example, at a simple end, lowering ad spend, it does mean they'll get less results, but it means that we're not trying to shove everything into what can quite frankly be at times a very, very limiting budget.
I think that's where we have to be clever, isn't it? And that's almost where I think we're getting better at this, is putting something tangible against a budget. So every client's going, oh, what am I going to get for that? So if you do say, okay, if we've put a number in, let's say we put 100 grand in and the client had 50 grand in their head.
Yeah.
We go, well, with that 100k in our proposal, here is what we expect to get as an outcome. Now,
Yeah.
if you're happy to half that, then so be it. But you will be losing elements along the way.
But I think what I like
Absolutely.
about that is that conversation about trying to meet the client's budget in that case happens after you've built a relationship, and it's a collaborative thing to work towards that budget. Like you say, you can have a conversation and say, we can meet that budget, but we'll need to lose this, as opposed to trying to present all that information up front and trying, like I say, it feels like you're trying to put too many things into a smaller basket.
Well, I always try. I suppose I always see it as an opportunity to qualify again.
Yeah.
So there've been plenty of instances where we've been sat in front of the client and they've said, well, I really want to do this and I think I want to do that and I want to do that. And one of us has said, well, okay, so what sort of budget you got in mind? Well, I don't have a budget in mind. And we'll look and usually we're sort of in line with this, and we'll say, we'll pick a number that we know is around about right and we'll throw it out there. And you can tell immediately if you're down, bang on.
You can normally tell if you're way over.
Yeah. But it at least gives you that qualification, but you can then walk away from that initial meeting and say, do we believe we want to continue this?
Well, realistically, we're not going to be for everybody. Just as every company out there isn't a perfect match for all of their target audience. So yeah, from that point of view, I think you have to take the stance of if you're way out and you have drastically different expectations, then it's probably better that you don't work together.
I suppose as well, like people know when they engage with a specific agency the type of service and the type of quality or level that they can expect. So we're very lucky now, our clients and our prospects, it doesn't come as a surprise when we put our proposals in front of them because they're buying into a very certain type of thing. And I think as long as they're aware of that, then it helps and it makes it easier to kind of have those conversations.
Sounds good. Good, robust conversation around budgets. One of my favourites. Loved it. Okay, great. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for the hints and tips there. Hopefully, any listeners or viewers find that useful. Feel free to check us out on www.b2bknowledge.com to check out our free, ungated online content hub, helping our clients, prospects, and contacts navigate the ever-evolving B2B marketing landscape. Thanks very much, guys, and see you next week.
Thanks.
Cheers.